Oh hi, and welcome to Sabnessful, where I give my opinions that no one really cares about but will give anyways. Today, I'm recapping and reviewing the hit 2025 film, Weapons. Am I shamelessly covering this film because it's super popular and I'm hoping to get me more views and subscribers?
Yes.
And what about it?
But I do have things to say and change. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing a video on it. But since we're on the topic, go ahead and caress that subscribe button to help my channel grow. As always, I will be starting with an overview of the film, but if you just want to skip to my opinions, you can use these timestamps provided. Otherwise, it's time to go headfirst into Weapons. Spoilers abound. Weapons begins with a very long black screen with narration from some unknown child character, and we actually never find out who it is. The narrator starts by saying this is a true story, which it's not, and sets the stage. 2 years ago, a new 3rd grade teacher named Justine Gandy walked into her classroom and saw that 17 of her 18 students were missing, with the only one being there a boy named Alex. The narrator then tells us that during the night before at 2:17 a.m., all 17 missing students got out of bed and ran out of their house and never came back. The narrator continues telling us some of the kids were caught running on home security cameras, and that both Alex and Justine were questioned heavily, but both claimed they had no involvement and had no idea what happened. The narrator then tells us that the school was closed for a month, but was about to reopen. The night before doing so, the school holds a meeting with the parents and community, which is where the narration ends and the story begins. During the meeting, a man stands up and demands that they hear from the teacher of the missing students.
Talking about 17 kids in one classroom. What happened in that classroom? Why just her classroom? Why only her?
Justine gets on stage and says she wants answers just like everyone else, which does not get a good reaction from the crowd, and Justine is escorted outside. Justine then goes to a gas station to grab alcohol, understandable, and while there she gets a threatening call from some unknown woman and sees someone in a pickup truck watching her. Now paranoid, she quickly goes home, and while watching TV she keeps hearing someone knocking. Knock knock, who's there? Oh, no one? That's no fun. So round 2 of poor knock-knock jokes, and Justine goes out to investigate, but once again, no one's there. And instead, she sees the word witch painted on her car. At least not bitch. The next morning, she tries to wash this off, but fails. Later, she talks to the school principal, Marcus, about trying to get some work so she can fill her days. But Marcus says it's best if she keeps her distance from the school, saying this is a way to protect her since the parents are quite volatile. She asks about Alex and says she'd feel better if she got a chance to speak with him.
I would feel so much better if I could just speak with him.
Right there.
What?
That's the problem. You'd feel so much better. He's been scrutinized by the press. He's had investigators ransack his house. He's been traumatized. Let's try and put Alex first, yes?
I mean, I get Alex as a kid, but what about Justine? She's also been traumatized and has been scrutinized even more than Alex. Anyways, Marcus says that's out of the question. Moving on, Justine goes to the police station to report what's been happening to her, and while there, she waits at this cop. Later, she's at a bar, and this cop, his name is Paul, shows up as well. They talk, they drink, they fuck, and the next day, Justine drops Paul off at work. Justine then goes to the school and stalks Alex, following him home. Really proving her innocence there, Justine. She rings his doorbell, no one answers, and she notices newspaper covering the windows. Curious, she goes around back and peeks through her sliver in the newspaper and sees Alex's parents sitting motionless on a couch. Naturally, Justine then goes to buy more alcohol and gets confronted by Paul's wife. Oh yeah, Paul was married. That night, she then experiences a strange dream where a woman with orange hair appears. The next day, Justine gets back to stalking and tries to talk to Alex, but he shouts at her to leave him alone. However, Justine has listening issues and camps her car in front of his house. She eventually falls asleep, and we get a creepy scene of some woman coming and cutting a piece of Justine's hair. Why didn't you lock the doors? Now it's Archer's turn. Yeah, so this film changes to different character perspectives, which I usually enjoy this format most of the time, but I'll get into that later. Anyways, Archer is the father of Matthew, who is one of the missing students. And he is probably the most active parent, you could say, trying to look for his child. He obsessively watches his home video of his son leaving, and he constantly stops at the police station asking for any updates. We also see he's the man that wants to hear from Justine at the school meeting, and is the one who was watching Justine at the gas station and painted witch on her car. And he too also experiences a strange dream, which I think this happens on the same night that happened to Justine, where he sees a gun floating in the sky and a woman with orange hair. After studying the home video and having a strange dream, Archer puts together that Matthew ran the direction towards this tower looking thing and maps this out. He then goes to another parent's house who caught their daughter leaving on home video and asks to watch it. He then figures out the direction she went, maps it out, and circles an area where the kid's path could have intersected. Honestly, this is pretty good detective work from Archer, but then this makes me wonder why the actual police and detectives didn't do this, especially considering where the paths intersect. Spoiler, it's Alex's house. Moving on, Archer sees Justine at the gas station and confronts her, and while there, Justine sees Marcus running to her. You good there, Marcus? Oop, I guess not. Archer pushes Marcus off of Justine, and Marcus starts to strangle him. And would you look at And would you look at that, it's time for Paul's turn. Paul goes on patrol and sees a teenager doing something sketchy and proceeds to chase him, grab him, and cuff him. While searching him, Paul asks if he has anything sharp in his pockets, to which he says no. Paul searches his pockets and gets poked by a needle, and angered by this, he then proceeds to punch the teenager. Unfortunately for Paul, he realizes the dash cam recorded this, so he makes a deal with the teenager that he'll let him go as long as he doesn't report him and stays away from the police. Moving along, we go to him meeting Justine at the bar. We see his wife coming home and realizing what Paul is up to, and then while at work, he sees the teenager walking to the station.
What did I tell you? Huh? What did I tell you?
Paul then proceeds to chase him and unplug all the dash cams. Now it's James's turn, which is the name of the teenager. And just for clarity's sake, James is a homeless, wait, isn't it unhoused now? Unhoused addict. We see him making calls and stealing from cars to get money. Why does no one lock the car doors? We then see him try to sneak into a building where Paul catches him. We get the same chase sequence, and afterwards while walking around, he sees Alex's house and notices newspapers in the driveway, making him believe no one is home and sneaks inside. And for clarity's sake, he has no idea who Alex is, nor that this is Alex's house, it's just a coincidence. While looking for anything valuable, he sees Alex's parents still motionless on the couch. Since they don't react to him being there, James keeps searching and heads into the basement where he sees the missing children and they see him. James then goes to a pawn shop to sell the items he stole, and while there he sees a very nice reward for those missing children. So out of the kindness of his heart, yeah, who are we kidding? He goes to the police station to report he found the kids to get the $50,000 reward. That's why Paul sees him going to the station. Once again, Paul chases after James, and James runs into the woods where he sees a woman with orange hair. Eventually, Paul catches him and James tells him he found the missing kids. Paul then drives into Alex's house and goes inside to investigate, leaving James cuffed in the car. Hours pass and Paul comes back outside and drags James inside the house. Now it's Marcus's turn. We see Marcus have a meeting with none other than the woman with orange hair, Gladys. She says she's the oldest sister of Alex's mom and says Alex's parents have been unwell and that she's taking care of them. Marcus tells her he needs to talk with Alex's parents since someone lodged a welfare check. Later we see Marcus at home with his husband and Gladys shows up. Gladys then starts doing witchy stuff and controls Marcus to kill his husband and to go after Justine, thus taking us back to Marcus attacking her at the gas station. We then see the scene play out with Justine driving away, Marcus chasing her, and Archer chasing Marcus. Oh, Marcus, that's a red light. Well, Marcus is dead and Justine and Archer get checked and released from the hospital. Upon seeing Marcus attack Justine and run exactly like the other children did, Archer thinks that Justine might not actually be the culprit, so he decides to show her the map he's been working on.
Oh my god.
So there must be something about this area.
Alex.
What?
Alex Lilly lives in this house.
Alex, that's your cue. And with Alex's perspective, we finally learned everything that's been going on. But since there's a lot, I'm just gonna go over the main points. Gladys is indeed the older sister to Alex's mom. Well, I guess technically she could be disguising herself as Alex's mom's sister. We'll probably find out in the prequel. Anyways, Gladys is very sick, so his parents take her in. One day, Gladys shows Alex that she can force his parents to do whatever she wants by having them stab themselves with a fork, which is fucked up. She tells him to do as she says and forces him to feed his parents. She then does more witchy stuff, which I'm assuming she's trying to extend her life or make herself healthier. It's never clarified, but it's not working, so she asks Alex to take an item from each of his classmates. He complies and Gladys uses the items to control all 17 of his classmates to run to his house. Thus the events that kicked off the movie. Days pass by and on the night after Marcus attacks Justine, Gladys tells Alex to leave him tomorrow and to not step over the salt. Essentially, Gladys is able to control people as long as she has something that belongs to them, like a piece of hair or a ribbon. But this doesn't always work, which I can't get into right now because we're about to climax. Wait, the climax of the film kicks off with Archer and Justine going to Alex's house. They see Paul motion for them to go inside, which they do, and Alex sees them doing this. Archer and Justine enter the house and are attacked by James and Paul. Meanwhile, Alex fails to do his one job and steps over the salt, which makes his parents attack him and he flees to his room. Back downstairs with no other choice, Justine shoots and kills Paul and James. Archer then goes into the basement and starts looking for Matthew, but instead he finds Gladys. Why is she down here like that? Gladys attacks Archer and controls him to restrain Justine. Wait, I just realized she didn't have her sticks down there, so how did she control him? Whatever. Back upstairs, Alex sneaks past his parents and goes into Gladys's room. He finds her witchy sticks and grabs a piece of hair from her wig, wraps it around the stick just like she does, and breaks it. And for some reason, makes all 17 children run after her. He then gets a long, admittedly amusing, chase sequence, and the kids catch Gladys and rip her to shreds. Literally. This then releases Archer and Alex's parents from her control. Justine checks on Alex upstairs and Archer runs after the kids. He finds them all standing in a circle and spots his son Matthew. He grabs Matthew and walks down the street to where our unknown child narrator wraps up the film.
Alex's parents are still being fed soup somewhere, but not by him. He moved to another town and lives with a different aunt. I heard that one is a nice lady. All of the kids from his class got reunited with their parents. Some of them even started talking again this year.
And that's Weapons, onto my likes. I really like the premise of this film. It's really intriguing and different from other films I've seen. I did find it interesting that the film blended horror with comedy, and I think the film did a good job at that. I didn't think the comedy took away from the seriousness of what's going on. If anything, it added to the horror. Specifically, what comes to my mind is when James attacks Archer. Archer punches him down like 10 times, and James still keeps getting back up and attacking. It's funny because you can tell Archer is over it, but it's still horrifying because clearly no matter what Archer does, James will continue attacking. I did enjoy the switch of character perspectives. I wasn't expecting it, but I liked it, kind of. I really liked seeing Justine's, Archer's, Marcus's, and Alex's perspective and how they all connected with each other. I did not, however, like Paul's and James's perspective, but I'll get into that in my dislikes. I also did like that not everything was explained to us. We had to infer a lot of what's actually going on, but that's pretty easy to do so, which is why I don't mind that not everything was explained. It's easy to see that Gladys is trying to pull Mother Gothel and stay young and healthy. It's also easy to infer that she can't control Justine. And we know this because we know she has a piece of Justine's hair, but never uses it to control her, which means she can't. Which means Justine is who she needs to do whatever it is she's doing. We can also infer that she doesn't control Alex because she needs someone to look after those she controls, and he's the most vulnerable. And lastly, we can infer that the longer you're under control, the harder it is to come back. Which is why Archer bounces back almost immediately because he was under control for like a minute. Hello, this is Editing Sab. Upon looking back at the film, I think I might actually have the misread of what actually is happening at the end. I interpreted that Justine can't be controlled by Gladys because Gladys has a piece of Justine's hair, yet she never actually controls her, so I just assume she can't, and that's why she needs her for whatever healthy thing she's doing. At the end, it is clear that Gladys is trying to kill Justine. Like, I don't think Archer was just restraining her. I think he was trying to kill her. So I actually might be wrong on my interpretation of this, but And also just like kind of looking back into, there were so many things that just don't clearly make sense, that just don't add up, and like, this kind of just all like falling apart very quickly. Anyways, back to the video. In terms of my favorite character, I have to say it's probably Marcus. It's refreshing that he clearly cares about Justine and tries to help her by keeping her away from the school, aka the parents, and that he doesn't just blame her and use her as a scapegoat, which would be easy for him to do. Granted, he may be doing this because if she is guilty, that doesn't look good for the school, but it's already not a good look, and it's clear he genuinely cares about her. Lastly, I want to mention that I appreciate the small scale of the story and that the reasoning for why everything is happening isn't some grandiose conspiracy, it's from one witch. Bigger is always better is not always the case, and I appreciate the film is not trying to do that. But a part of me can't help but think it should have, which brings me to my dislikes. I just feel like the reason for why everything is happening is just too simple for the events that took place. 17 kids go missing in one night. That definitely destroys a town, makes national news, and gets the FBI involved. It's just too large scale an event, which is why a part of me feels like their reasoning should have matched that or be on a greater scale. I kind of thought that maybe most of the town was in on the disappearances and our main character Justine is totally fucked with the scale of what's going on, but that's not the direction the story went. I also feel this story is always going to be more interesting in concept and when we don't know the result. 17 kids go missing and I want to know why, but once I do, the intrigue isn't really there anymore. Granted, you can't not answer the question, that's the whole point of watching the film, and be frustrating if you didn't answer it. But I was like, oh, that's the reasoning? Okay. Which is why I think if the reasoning was on a larger scale, I wouldn't have that feeling. At the end of the day, it's all because of one feeble old woman, which yes, she has terrifying power and there is some horror in someone so feeble being so powerful, but it just doesn't land for me. That's just the main thing though. I don't think that was a bad direction. It was just okay for me. That said, the film does feel clunky to me, like the writer didn't know which direction to go, and though I'm glad that not everything was spoon-fed to us, there were some things that weren't explained that just felt too random. The dream sequences are what comes to my mind, like Gladys and the firearm showing up. No reason was given for why Gladys shows up in the dreams. I guess you could infer that she's watching everybody or that her effect on the town is so great that people are sensing her in their dreams, but that feels like a bit of a stretch. It just feels the gimmick of Gladys showing up is more jump scare driven rather than story driven. And the firearm?
Why?
It feels like there's a storyline that the firearm was involved in, but then that got cut and the firearm was accidentally left in the film. Again, I don't want everything explained to me, but I don't want things to feel random either. Going back to the clunky feeling, I do think Paul and James's storylines were unnecessary. The mystery of the disappearances are the story's strong suits, and I didn't enjoy it when the story diverged from that. I don't mind the idea of characters who aren't connected to the case accidentally getting involved, But in this case, I don't really think it brought much to the film, nor did it really impact the story. The whole cheating storyline was just so useless, and Justine and Archer probably still go in the house without Paul beckoning them. It felt the only reason James and Paul were there were so that they could attack Justine and Archer, which Alex's parents or even the kids could have done. Like, imagine how fucked up it'd be if Archer and Justine had to fight off the kids. I'm actually going to use that. Speaking of which, with my How It Changed section, I don't think a whole rewrite is necessary. Honestly, the film is fine as it is. I'm just going to change it to my personal taste while keeping the same essence of the story. So even though I personally would have done something bigger for the reasoning behind the disappearances, Gladys is too important to the story, and honestly, she's a fun villain, so I'm not cutting her. I will, however, cut James and Paul as characters. I just don't think they add anything to the story, and this will make the film feel less clunky. Because of these two major cuts, I now have a lot of extra time to fill, which I'd use to flesh out Justine and Archer even more since I think they're the most interesting dynamic, and I would have liked to have seen them working together a bit more, so I'm going to add that. I'd also use that additional time to actually see the aftermath of when the disappearances happened. I want to see the pandemonium of the parents in town finding out what happened. I would have loved to have seen that in the film, and was honestly disappointed we didn't, so that's how I'm going to start the film. We'd still get the narration in the beginning, but once we see the kids running away, we then immediately go into Justine walking to her class to see all her kids gone, and I then have her go talk to Marcus about what's happening. Of course, at this point, most of the parents would probably be aware their kids are missing, and I probably even show some of the parents, like Archer, noticing their kids are missing. This would naturally cause a town-wide panic, and we would see all of that fall out. This also gives us a great chance to see how the town turns on both Justine and Alex, which is some nice added context that isn't necessarily needed, but welcomed. I still have the school meeting, and pretty much everything will stay the same till the end, with some minor tweaks and changes. For example, with the bar scene, since I cut Paul, I'd have Justine alone at the bar. I'd have her try to talk with the bartender, and though he does take pity on her, he still doesn't interact with her since she's such a pariah. I kind of like this idea of completely isolating Justine and making her feel all alone, which makes more sense why she's so desperate to talk to Alex since she's all alone, and we've seen how the town has shut her out. The next thing I'll tweak are the dream sequences. I'm cutting the floating gun. Don't want it, don't need it. Besides that, I'm not changing a thing about them, but I will make the dreams more important. I really thought that at some point Justine and Archer would tell each other about their dreams and realize that something unnatural is going on. It's just too much of a coincidence of both of them to dream of such a distinct woman they've never met before on the same night, and I really like the idea of that being used to bring them together even more. The best place to put this would be after Justine and Archer leave the hospital. They could be talking about how so many strange things have been happening, and this would be a good way for Justine to mention her dreams, and Archer gets intrigued when she mentions seeing a woman with orange hair. It's then this combination of Marcus attacking and Justine having similar dreams that gets Archer to bring Justine in. If I can, I'd also add more dream sequences and show Justine dreaming of Gladys multiple times. Maybe she even mentions this woman in her dreams to the bartender, and he makes a comment saying, "So is everyone else," hinting at multiple people coming to the bar and describing the same thing. If I can, I even show Marcus having a dream about Gladys, where at the very least when he first meets her, instead of saying he'd remember if they met before, he does ask if they in fact have met before and can't quite figure out where, hinting to us that he's also experiencing the dreams. By suggesting that everyone in the town are having these dreams, it gives that "oh feeling that I was hoping for. It's clear now that Gladys is watching everybody, and it shows just how much of a threat she is. I also think in a way this helps explain why she's defeated so easily, since despite being so powerful, Alex pretty easily takes her down. But a good reason for this now is that as a result of Gladys watching everyone and looking for who she needs, she neglects watching over the person closest to her, Alex. This creates a massive blind spot for him and a misread of how much control she has over him, which is why Alex is able to defeat her. Plus, if you can watch a whole town and control dozens of people at the same time, your hubris is probably massive, which also helps contribute to her downfall. The last thing I'll tweak is the climax. I'm stealing the idea from myself of using the kids to attack Justine and Archer since I cut James and Paul. I think this adds an interesting layer of complexity to the situation. You finally found the kids, but now they're attacking you. What do you do? And we can even keep the gimmick of James attacking by having Archer take down kid after kid after kid, which has its own dark humor to it. I wouldn't have Justine kill any of them though, since quite frankly, I don't think a character would do that. But I would have her try to save Archer like she does in the original story. I think it'd be interesting if we see Archer fighting the kids back, but once he sees his son, he can't bring himself to hurt him. So Matthew and the other kids are able to overwhelm him, which is why Justine has to save him. Or at least attempts to. I would have the kids prevent her from doing so, and I'd have Gladys approaching Archer Archer to grab a piece of his hair and use him to restrain Justine. We actually don't see Gladys doing this in the original story, but showing it here emphasizes again that Justine can't be controlled, which is why she is what Gladys is looking for. Also, I do want to note that the kids don't tear apart Justine Archer like they do with Gladys, since Gladys wasn't aiming to kill them, unlike Alex. Speaking of Alex, I'm not changing about anything he does in the climax. He will once again break the sticks that will once again make the children attack and kill Gladys. And the film plays out the same till the end. This does make me wonder if the power lies within the sticks or Gladys. And if it's Gladys, then how can Alex do this? But if it's the sticks, then what kind of sticks do you need? Asking for a friend. Anyways, that's how I changed weapons. I pretty much just gave ideas for a different direction the story could have gone, which I definitely prefer. But let me know what you think of my changes and opinions down below. And that's all I have for today. Ta-ta!